everyone, this is Jay High from Couch and Keyboard, back with another video, and I want to kind of dip my toes back into my TO brain. If anyone doesn't know, I've been a TO on and off since like 2017. Technically I did a couple things before that, but like my first main stuff was in 2017. And yeah, I've cared a lot about the intricacies of like bracket running, and I think things could be optimized. And I just want to say that I think a lot of people settle with double elimination when you can do so much more. Now, there was a tweet that went out saying that if you're not running Swiss at your locals, then you're doing something wrong. And people kind of clowned on us, like, you know how long it takes, like, to run all these sets for a local? And it's like, okay, like, if you have 70 people and you have, like, 6 hours to run bracket and only a certain amount of setups, yeah, I get running double elimination instead of Swiss. However, I do think let's not be too simple in our thinking and try and think how we can give more bang for your buck for the people that are traveling to the events. Let's try and make sure people are incentivized to come back and tell their friends. Like, let's try and improve the player experience. And so here we have our most recent, Super Major. Tons of players. This is more so known as like a Melee, like historic one. Like, yeah, they've had whatever the new game is between Brawl, Smash 4, and Ultimate. But Melee is more so the game. This is one of the few majors that has more Melee than Ultimate usually. But it's still pretty top heavy. I don't necessarily blame them for doing double elimination here. I think that like the Super Majors, probably fine. And I don't remember if they did all best of 5 or if they just did it for okay, yeah, I think they just did it for round 2 pools. And it used to be like top 8 or top 16, so a lot of players get a lot of games. I don't necessarily think that doing all best of 5 is that much better, because if you're playing someone way better than you, an extra game is not really going to change that. But sometimes, you know, game 5s happen. But yeah, I think that is one way of doing things a little bit differently. But I do think there's other things you can do to help improve the experience of players while not harming the experience of top players. And most people are familiar with this. It is a redemption bracket. This is a major called Patchwork, pretty close to where I'm from. This is in North Carolina. And what they do is they have redemption brackets. Now, they used to be called amateur brackets or like, you know, Shadow Realm, whatever. Like, there's a few names for it. Redemption's been more commonly used. Get a chance to redeem yourself. You lose early, here's some chance to beat some people like placed near you and see how you do. And this is usually it's done at some locals. Some people don't really bother, or they do single elimination and open redemption bracket for too many people. So everyone that goes 0-2 just goes 0-3, and then it's like the people that went 2-2 and barely missed out on top 16 get to just win more. I think that you should probably do double elimination, or you should do a divided thing to where people that place the same should all go in one thing for redemption. People that place the same in another bracket all go in the same thing. And that's something that I've kind of lobbied for at my tournament. Some people are like, hey, I want a chance to play the better people. And I'm like, okay. But like, I think about the people that are like pretty new. Sometimes we'd have like high schoolers, even middle schoolers come through, and they were just not that great. And getting the chance to play some of the regulars that would come that are on the lower ends, you know, it can help alleviate nerves. It can give some experience. You know, maybe they get a win. They have that confidence to come back next time. I think, you know, playing with the format a little bit, like, this is a major, so like giving 117 players, second place of which is one of the best in South Carolina. So it feels a little bit strange to do a redemption bracket for that wide, but it's like, I think you can probably do like the first 1 or 2 rounds of losers, and then like do like a middle redemption. Sometimes do like 9th place tiebreakers if it's like a smaller event, you know, like do something to where there's more sets, and sometimes a player kind of seems above redemption. It's like, oh, I don't want. They kind of turn their nose up, like that's beneath me. It's like, look, man, like you can play more sets, or you don't have to. Like you don't gotta be a jerk about it. But like I think that redemption's pretty easy to run, and that like yeah, sometimes you have to worry about setups, but everyone is out of main bracket that is in redemption. I like doing it like starting round one because those people are out, and then you can do waves of later redemption rounds as the tournament progresses. But either way, this they did, I'm pretty sure redemption on the second day, or at least started it. Like I think they had it ready in the first day and completed on the second day, something like that. To where 2-day events, you have more time. I'll kind of come back to that later. But yeah, I think that if you're not doing redemption bracket and if you have more than like 3 setups, you should do redemption bracket. Like just do something. I prefer double elimination or trying to get multiple different levels of redemption, but you choose. Now, a very commonly done format besides double elimination for everyone is round robin pools. Now, I've made some videos, a video specifically about how I think round robin pools for invitationals is not very good, depending on how you format it. Europe does a lot of round robin pools. I think that is better than not doing it. I think that it gives people, especially like you have people that never play against Cody, they're all getting a chance. Now, these pools are big. I understand that player fatigue is a thing, and so I think there's a case for not wanting top players to have to play so many good players. Like I could see the reason for having smaller pools, but I think this is pretty good. It's shuffled around. Sometimes they have a wonky looking bracket. It's not a perfect 64 or 32. It's a little weird looking, but it's like, you know what, like let's get plenty of people to get sets, and like there was a lot of data from this. You had Ryden versus Frenzy. You had Salt playing against a bunch of players. Like you had a decent amount of data that I think was valuable. Now some players, there's 2 pools. Some players it doesn't really necessarily like Cody and Moth playing. That's a little annoying because they're both America. But like there's something that I think is cool. I think is worthy of like hey, it's cool that there's more chances to get to play against someone like that. They also have a built-in redemption bracket. That's something you can do. Is that like sometimes the worry about redemption is having to like seed it to make sure they're not having repeat matchups and all this kinds of stuff. You can have it to where it's automatically like having progressions. Sometimes that can be weird with exporting data and counting stuff, but look, they did double elim and then they had this big thing, and this was actually also like more of a gauntlet phase kind of that invitations have done. Like you can win your way back in. That's also pretty cool. Reminds me of things I'll mention in a bit, but and this was a multi-day event. They had the luxury of a lot of setups, a lot of time, and they were able to get through a lot of people, and that's cool. And if people DQ, that's fine. You can still service the people that want to do it. Even if it's a small bracket, I think it's worth doing. And round robin, it is a little clunky because there's a lot of pools. If you notice, there is 213 players and 28 pools. Like that is, a lot of pools are much bigger than that. And this is even pretty big for round robin pools because they had 7 players per pool, and that's kind of a lot for round robin. Usually it's like 4 or 5. But yeah, I think it's good. I would like to see more tournaments in the States to do round robin. There are a couple issues here and there, especially where you decide the cutoff. They had a pretty loose cutoff to where okay, you're not out. There's a chance that there's ties and game count matters when game count doesn't matter in any other form of Smash. So it can get weird. But I do think the higher chance of sets that matter. I do think round robin is worth trying. A few tournaments do it. Obviously, sometimes for locals, it can take a long time. I've done round robin locals with 36 players, six pools of six, and we're there from 6 to 12:30. Like, uh, it's a lot depending on how many setups you have and how efficient. Especially when we were using Challenge and trying to do it by paper. Um, Sometimes certain tools are required to try and do round robin, but give it a shot. I think it's not so bad. Another pretty popular format, especially for Smash 64, is waterfall brackets. Now, this is a bracket format I have tried before, and the first time I tried it, didn't work too hot. Um, the consensus is that you need multiple days to do waterfall because the amount of people that you have to get through, like by the time you get to final bracket, the people that have been either seated high enough or played early on and got floated up have been waiting for like 4 hours. So you have to be careful, depending on how many divisions you do, because like a lot of times you don't want divisions to be too challenging because you have people that like you want to have close sets, but waterfall usually depends on having a lot of days where there's a series of either double elim or round robin pools. Some of these pools are pretty big. 64, those games go by very fast. Yeah, this one just had like a lot of DQs, or I guess they did check marks for this. Um, but like yeah, like and then you can move on from this to go to the division. Sometimes you do like a placement pool and then it decides where you are in the uh, divisions and all that. Kind of like, okay, if you go like 3 and 2, you might be in Division 3, or if you're seated a certain place. I like the idea of it, and I wouldn't be opposed. I know some tournaments have done that for Melee as well, and I thought it's cool. Um, let's see, I forgot about one. It was like, what was it? Was it SoCal Coliseum? No, I don't think it was. I'm trying to think of SoCal Champions Star League. SoCal Star League. Yeah, okay, that's why. Okay. So I'll talk about this one a little bit. But yeah, so I think that waterfall is good if you have a lot of days. It's very challenging to pull off. Just because, like, yeah, I understand giving every player, like, hey, you're still in, it's still worth it to play. Sometimes moving on can be like, okay, these players, if they're like 0-6, like, and they play each other, there's not really a point, if it feels like it. So you kind of have that intrinsic motivation. But like sometimes it's like, hey, every set matters, you're not out. I think that can be more like better for players compared to like, oh, I'm redemption, none of this matters. It's like your heart's not really in it. So I think you can kind of like force your will a little bit. That sounds bad, but like, okay, here is the bracket. You have to play more sets, and a lot of times, the higher seeded players don't want to play more sets. It's like I just want to win anyway. There's more chances I'll lose, and it's like it's easy sometimes because I've had players that have disagreed with some things I've done with this, and I'm like, okay, you just don't want to lose. You want an easier path to the money, like easier path to get your graphic on Twitter. Like it's easy to be cynical there, and sometimes there's legitimate concerns that kind of get lost in translation. I'm not trying to say that players are always selfish in that way. Sometimes they have like okay, I genuinely think that this is challenging. And so waterfall is not for the faint of heart. It should probably be a multi-day event only. Then we have Swiss. Now I love Swiss for invitationals. I think it's fantastic. Even in a one-day invitational, I think Swiss is very good. Swiss in an uneven open bracket is very challenging. Smash Splash 5 was the main tournament that did this, and it was a hot mess. Now, I think it was overhated because it was confusing and slow, and sometimes it was a little uneven with who progressed. It's weird. I think this idea is not bad. but I think that's execution turned a lot of people away from Swiss. I think that it's good to have like, okay, these people play and these people play that are 1-0, 0-1, kind of like dividing it out. That is good. I think that is a good thing. That kind of idea should be instilled more. However, if you're having an odd number, or like even like if you keep dividing it up and you like an invitational I saw did 20. They had 10 and 10, and then like you had 5, 10, and 5. So like the 5 seed played someone, like instead of the 1 through 4 all being 2-0, it was the 1 through 5. You can't have an odd number of players all play each other like 6 or 8 or whatever. So it didn't really work out. There's some like a little bit of inconsistency. I think the idea of Swiss is good. I think it works better for invitationals. If you can kind of work it out to where you have like 16 in each pool, you can get kind of close, maybe have like 15. Like, I think you can work it to be okay. Usually multiples of 4 are better. Hopefully like perfect squares, like 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Those are kind of the perfect Swiss numbers that you can have. So if you have like closer to those numbers, you can make it work better. Sometimes it's a little bit like, but I do think Swiss is good for invitationals. I think it's really challenging to do. Another thing is like either you can do it manually, which I'll show in a little bit, or you have to do it where every single set has to finish. The strength of round robin is you can see every set in the pool immediately, and you can see what isn't done, what like, okay, you can work it out, and it's all there. Swiss, you have to wait for all of these matches to end before it feeds you this, or you enter it manually. That is hard to run. That is slow to run. If you have a, like, that is one of the biggest backlogs, because if you have someone that's running late, like, or they're busy or something in a different bracket, like, you can skip a couple of sets and have them speed run it after. For this, you literally can't move on until every single set is reported. That is difficult. Or you have to math it out in your head and make sure you don't make a mistake, which does happen. I have made those mistakes. One thing I mentioned, SoCal Star League. So it mentions ESL Swiss pools. This is like an invitational that did multiple different Swiss pools, and I thought was really interesting. To where how you did in the first few Swiss pools, either you went up or down, and so like round two lower pools, round 2 upper pools. This is really cool. Now the classic, where it's like if you win 3, you move on. If you lose 3, you go down or you're out, depending on what kind of bracket it is. League does it. A lot of esports do it. It's pretty common. This is very ambitious. I give a lot of props to Aiden for doing this. But yeah, I think this is not for the faint of heart, and you have to have a perfect 64 or 32 or 128 or whatever. Technically, if you do 96, I guess you could do like, if you have 40, you could do 5 pools of 8 and kind of work it from there. But it's difficult and you have to depend on having the right numbers for it. I wouldn't recommend doing it for open brackets, especially like a weekly. Here I have an example of doing it manually. I did this in one day where I had 32 in ultimate, pools best of 3, final bracket best of 5, and then for melee I did 16 players, and I did a full best of 5, and instead of stopping at 3 wins or losses, I did it all the way, that extra rounds. And you could do that. I think it's cool. Some people kind of got burnt out by this, so I think you have to adjust. Like if there's players that struggle with like endurance, then I think it is a challenge to get them to buy into this. One thing that another Ludwig event did was they had an LCQ event at the tournament, and then they did Swiss pools. I think that can be pretty cool, to where like you can work it in, and then you have like larger Swiss pools in a final bracket. You can play with it, but again, this is like this is a way of doing it. I think some people might get angry if players are floated, but that's an option. The best way I've seen that I think is the best way of doing it is a hybrid of that, to where you do double elimination pools like normal, and then you do a bit of waterfall after that. I saw another tournament do this like a year ago. This happened a few months ago, SoCal Sweep, to where you are able to start Division 4 as soon as losers round one and two end. So the backlog is much less. And then you can go on to Division 4 and you do double limb from there. I like round robin, but I do think that like doing double elimination multiple times through is pretty good for a lot of players. I think that like my desire, especially like for this, I wanted as few players to go winless as possible. And so only one player went winless, and they in pools, they still had the chance of winning later on. One 32-person event I ran for Rivals 1, the person that went 0-5 in their pool, I guess the entire pool, they won a set later on. So they were able, like no one went winless. And I think that's pretty cool. Because if you have, 700, 900 players, a quarter of them go winless, a quarter go 1 and 2. Half your players get only 2 or 3 sets. So like at majors, doing this like redemption or like having some kind of like waterfall round robin, it gives more bang for your buck. If you're looking at locals, I think redemption is a pretty good way to go. Or you do this quick kind of series of double elimination brackets. One thing I did is kind of like a segmented Swiss, where like I did these brackets. Let me look at one. It was like, so for a bracket of this size, I had, I think I usually did pools of 10 players. So I don't think I can find a pool of 10 for right now. But like, let's say, pretend there's 2 here. And so usually 2 players get 9th, 2 get 7th, 2 get 5th. I would do tiebreakers and then use that for seeding into a later thing. It's kind of hard to show. You can do it in like, I think as a reference to Scar and getting 6th at Genesis. You can do a 5th place tiebreaker. That's the first tiebreaker you can do. Sometimes you can do a 3rd place tiebreaker for single limb. Maybe it's just the first one. I don't know if it's a reference. But you can't do 7th or 9th or whatever. So if you do pools of 10, you can have these tiebreakers and then use those for seeding later on. Or you can just do it straight like this. It's pretty intuitive. You can set it up to where it immediately happens, to where it gets fed in, and then they can resume in this, and like you can start. These were in winners, and then from Division 4 was losers. It's not the most matches ever. Like for my invitational, instead of doing just a single limb gauntlet phase that a lot of brackets do, I just did everyone starts in winners and you have to win your way in. That's cool, but like I think this is a good compromise for a lot of players, like because this is 133. This I had 32 and 16, so I think this is probably the best way of doing it, to where either you do redemption or you do this, or you just do a simple, maybe 2 or 3 divisions for a local or something, and pretty much you just give it like in some way for worse players it's like triple or quadruple elimination, to where like they have more guaranteed sets, and it trims the herd to where you go from, let's say, 16 players going 0-2 to like 8 going 0-3 to like 4 going 0-4, and you get more people sets, and it doesn't take that much longer because things are still progressing. It would take longer, but I don't think it would take as long as people expect. I'm really, really curious about this format. I've done a small version where I did some manually with tiebreakers and stuff, but just how this worked, it was a 1-day event, and like, yeah, I think with doing a lot of divisions, I bet you could do 2 or 3 divisions at a local, and it turned out not too bad. Another issue is you have top players waiting a lot, so I think that if you only do 2 or 3 divisions, that would limit the waiting. Especially if you have Um, Especially like if you take a while to stream your later sets. Like if you wait to stream all of these in a row, you can get through a lot of what is through here. And because like maybe you can do it a little bit differently to where like you have all these players move on to Division 1 or 2 and like you're able to just do uh, the rounds from these three. You can play with it, but I do think this is probably a good option. If you don't want to worry about that, try redemption. Maybe try a few round robin pools. Like, try things to give your players more experience, more bang for their buck. I think that settling with double limb and doing nothing else and say figure out friendlies, I don't think you're servicing players that are shy or don't know people or setups are awkward because of money matches and the whole money match culture where, oh, because I put $1 down, that means my set's more important than yours. iGreg has a good rant about that. Like trying to provide a more competitive, either it's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more casual, lower level. That's still something that I think you can cultivate and really help your community. Just my advice. If you want to stick to double limb only, that's your prerogative. I encourage you, try round robin. Try like a double limb segmented waterfall thing like SoCal Sweep. Try redemption bracket. That's probably the easiest. But yeah, just don't leave your players out left hanging. Give them a chance to get more sets in. That's all I have to say.